To be honest with you, it is one of the best things about summer is these unexpected rainfalls. Now today we were caught completely unawares, a little bit of a rain shower as Taylor said, and then I even watched the sunrise just before we came live with you. The sun came up underneath the clouds. Herbie, myself, Tristan, Taylor, many years of experience, and of course Mother Nature just showing us how ignorant and silly we actually are. And you know, it's just one of those things. We live and we learn. So please excuse us for the apparent chaos. We've at least got ourselves well practiced at this type of thing already. And by the time the rain stops at the end of summer, I would imagine that we'd be able to deal with rain quite effectively just before we forget how again and next summer arrives. Right. Now, X-Ranger, you wanted to know what the temperature is right now. It's about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not actually that cold. It's typical of summertime here is that the temperature doesn't drop much when it does start to rain. You can actually get away with not wearing any jacket whatsoever. It's just I know that this tent becomes a bit of a wind tunnel, and wet clothes and wind tunnel effect inside here, and you end up being quite cold. Hence me having my jacket on, but it's actually not that cold. I'll take it off in a little bit. And what we'll do is just as soon as I dry off, shed some of the water that we collected. Now we managed not to kill any of our kit, which is amazing, and I'm sure Jeandre is going to be sleeping easier this afternoon knowing that. All right. Now, for those of you joining us for the tent for the very first time, the tent is a way for us to explore things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to explore out there in the bush. So I'm going to be gleaning through the bush around here looking for insects. We've got a microscope. This here is a microscope that we use to generate pictures like this, which we will be showing you from time to time of a variety of different things. It's also a nice time to talk about topics that we otherwise perhaps don't discuss in enough detail out on drive, and the reason for that is that we've got access to a lot of knowledge over here. I have access to my extensive library of 20 books over here, and we can go through a variety of things there. I also have access to the internet, which I unfortunately don't have when we're on a bushwalk, and so can research things and open up topics of discussion. We can also have a look at or discuss things that we've seen during the week or the past few weeks or summer for that matter of fact, or what we've been experiencing as a season. So remember to send in your questions using the hashtag #SafariLive, and we'll get through as many as we can. All right. Now, Happy, you wanted to know if I believe that the rain that we're seeing is heralding a change in the weather patterns that we're noticing across the world. I know that there's heavy rains in Peru at the moment. There's been landslides and mudslides everywhere, and it's killed some people. Even in the Central Africa, we've got a lot of rains that is hurting people. We've obviously just come out of a big drought in South Africa. There's a famine going on in Sudan at the moment that's killing a lot of people. East Africa, Kenya, very dry at the moment. Let me just think about this answer. Firstly, as a geologist, and that's what I studied at university, I tend to think about climate in geologic terms, which is in millions, hundreds of millions of years. And in that particular sense, we're having a very mild climate condition on Earth at the moment. Although seasonally we're seeing fluctuations, and even at a decade level, even at a century level, every 100 years, we are seeing this movement towards some areas getting wetter than others, other areas being drier than others. From a geologic point of view, this is very normal and very temperate, and has been for a couple of million years. It will never stay that way. I mean, we can have a look at the oceans. The world's oceans were massively reduced during the last ice ages. A lot of water was tied up in glaciers that spread almost to the equator. Coming from the poles, moving across the continents, creating land bridges between islands and between continents that never existed before. We've also had intense desertification, and although we are seeing encroachments of deserts increasingly into the areas where we're living, it's not uncommon for areas to have gone through numerous cycles of being deserts, being marshes, being rainforests, going back to deserts, being covered by lava flows, being ravaged by earthquakes. It's unfortunately just the nature of this planet, in that it's ever changing. So let me just make my point, I think, in that I think we're living in a very good time over here from a humanity point of view. I think we need to be careful with our resources if we want to maintain a healthy population of people. I think we need to seriously look at how we farm and utilize our resources and consume what we consume. But all of that is actually going to have very little effect on the actual outcome of climate change, in my opinion. It's inevitable. We will go through climate change. Life is going to get tough for us as a species and for all species on the planet again. But there will be some things that survive. Absolutely. It is the nature of it, unfortunately. Right, what I'm looking at over here is a piece of quartz. Now I managed to find this piece of quartz out on walk the other day, and I brought it back because there was some water trapped in it, and I just thought it would be a nice thing to try and show you the water that's trapped in it. I'm actually just trying to find it. I've got a feeling that it may have evaporated out of the crystal. So it was on one of these facets. And what happened was the water was creating a nice refraction inside a rainbow of sorts. And I want to show you a rainbow. Today's a good day for a rainbow. And since we don't have one in the sky, I thought I'd find one for you in this rock. Now, for the ladies out there, or mainly for the men buying ladies some presents, quartz as a rock with water in it is quite common. It's mined in Australia extensively as a mineral called opal, or as a precious stone called an opal. When you see an opal in your jewelry store, it's nothing more than a piece of quartz with water that's actually trapped in the crystal matrix and is refracting light out of it, which gives it all those fantastic colors, and it happens just to be my favorite semi-precious stone. I enjoy it. I enjoy good looking opals actually more than I enjoy diamonds as well. Right. Excuse me, we're going to get ourselves something to chat about in a little bit. I'll be back in a while. You're off to Taylor for an update.
Well, we've just popped off here to the hyena den, but unfortunately there's absolutely nothing happening. Everybody is sound asleep in their little burrow, and I don't blame them. It's not the nicest weather to be out and playing around in, so I'm sure that they're all nice and curled up to, hopefully next to mom, having a nice suckle, and then of course having a big sleep, which would not surprise me after a belly full of milk. Right, let's leave, let's go somewhere else. Now we need to just try and navigate out of here. It's always fun reversing when you can't see what's actually going on behind you. Right, through the trees. See, Craig, it's nice. David and I were tree trimming around here yesterday. There were some serious overhanging branches coming into the hyena den, because it had been about a year since it was last active, so there was no need for any of us to really come and drive on these roads, which this wasn't a road. It's been created obviously as an access point to the hyena den, and it's amazing. It only takes 3 or 4 goes up and down before the grass eventually dies underneath the tires and you get a beautiful road that we've got, well, at the moment. So we trimmed back a couple of those trees. We actually did quite a bit of bush clearing yesterday, David and I. It's quite nice. I like bush clearing. I think it's lots of fun, especially when you get to yield a panga and smash it away on overhanging branches and things like that. It's nice to get the frustrations out, get the blood flow going, and it's actually quite nice on a cold winter's day as well. It keeps you nice and warm. Now, Feather Beautiful, you were wondering if there are any poisonous flowers or plants. There definitely are. We'll try and find a lion's eye. That's got quite a potent toxin to it, but we'll have to see if we can find some. There are many different things out here. We actually showed you one yesterday, which was milkweed. It doesn't grow in abundance out here in this particular area. That's got a milky latex, and then one of the more toxic plants, which you see a lot of down in the southern sector, and I also started chatting about it yesterday too, was the euphorbia. So perhaps Stef, when he manages to find something to chat about, maybe he can pull up a picture on the interweb of one of the euphorbias, perhaps the Euphorbia cooperi, the most common one that we see around here, and that's one of the most toxic plants. I was saying yesterday, it can cause burning on your skin, big blistering and cause a number of things, different things. Temporary blindness, they use it as a fish poison. There's lots and lots of different things. There's actually some growing in Pippa and Yuri's house. They've got a couple of euphorbias growing there, but they prefer sort of rocky outcrops and down along river systems. And typically you actually see them around river systems and where there used to be informal settlements, sort of little villages when the indigenous people were still living around out here. And they used to use it to dip their cattle. It would help poison the ticks, and they'd also you can make a glue from it too. You can use it for a lot of different things. It's actually quite handy. Obviously you just need to know what you're dealing with, but we'll see if we can find some flowers for you. There were quite a few lion's eyes, or the roadside pimpernel is another name for it, and basically it's a bright orange flower, and it has got a toxin in it called pentacyclic cyanogenic glycosides, which is a type of a cardiovascular toxin. So it's not one that you want to eat in large quantities, but I believe if some animals do eat it. I mean, I don't know what or how much of it you need to ingest for it to be lethal, but they say that in small amounts actually that you can actually use it, which is quite nice. It's actually good for you. But always that's the thing, I suppose. Too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. It's quite a bad thing. Right, we just arrived at Treehouse Dam. Now I know we checked here earlier, but I thought we'd just have another look. No, we'll go have a look at, I think I can see a kingfisher. Maybe let's have a look at the kingfisher. Now, Naturable, you were wondering on this very rainy day if you get any aloes in South Africa. We do. We've actually got an abundance of species of aloes. We get a couple out here, Aloe striata, the coral aloe, I think the common name is. But we don't see too many, and there's a couple that grow up on the kranzes, on the big rocks and things like that. But out here, not so much. The elephants seem to have taken care of them, and it's not really the right conditions here, but you do see them throughout Africa. There was a kingfisher. Oh, you see that there's actually two kingfishers, Craig, quite low down. There we go, you've got them, those two over there. Are they both kingfishers? Nope, one is not a kingfisher. The one looks like used to be a foam nest, frog's nest, but there on the right hand side, that's what I first spotted. Oh, it's a spider's web. It's maybe a spider is even living there. I can't quite see. But there we have a woodland kingfisher. Now, oh, is it, or is it a grey-headed? Hang on. Let's see. Turn your body. Oh, it could be grey-headed, eh? Should we have a look quickly? Let's see. It was a long time since I last saw one of those. Where is my mobile device while you stare at this kingfisher? Because it may swoop down into the water and catch something. I'm also, now I can't see very well. It does look like a grey-headed, eh? It doesn't, well, it's got woodlandy fingers, maybe feathers, maybe it's just wet and it's, come on. No, now it's flown out of view. Let me just very quickly get my app out. Let's have a quick look at the kingfishers. Always good to double check and triple check. Right. So we've got the woodland over here. No, it's definitely not a grey-headed. I forgot. There's the grey-headed kingfisher. No, go away. Sorry, it's darker in colour. So that woodland kingfisher that we were just staring at now, obviously its feathers were a little bit wet because its head was very, very much grey. So this is the one we were looking at down here. But they're going to go soon, fairly shortly, and a kingfisher species. We sadly don't see them very often. I think I've seen one up here, and that's really it. But down in the southeast coast of South Africa, very, very prominent down there. They're actually really common and quite a special one to see. But who knows? You never know, with all this water around, it could definitely attract all sorts of other kingfishers. Oh, there it is. It's back again. It's just sitting on the other log, just over there. Where's that log? If you zoom out a little bit, you'll see that there's thorns. There it is, on the right-hand side. You've got it. There we go, Craig. Sitting now. It's going to sit itself perched up here. Oh, it is wet. Look at it now. You see how it's got its feathers opening its wings slightly? Now it's calling. And I think it is a little bit damp. But they tend to dry out quite quickly. They just need a little bit of a breeze. Remember, they are diving into the water all the time. Come on, catch it. Go, Craig, go. Ah, nicely done, Craig. Woohoo, well done. That was a good pan across. Catching birds like that are not the easiest thing to do, and as you can see, they never want to stay here for too long. But looking for tadpoles, looking for little frogs, looking for fish, looking for all sorts of goodies. But we're gonna go see what else we can find. I'm not sure what's happened to Tristan. Hopefully he's alright, and hopefully he'll be get going shortly. We're gonna go back across to Stef and see if he's managed to find something else to talk about.
Isn't it awesome that you managed to get that woodland kingfisher in flight there with Taylor? And you know, this is one of the last times of the year we're going to be able to see these woodland kingfishers, and their very distinctive trilling call that we have through the bush over here is going to be sorely missed. That is one of the bird calls that we wait for the most at the end of the dry season, is the woodland kingfisher, and today is one of those very good days that we can actually celebrate them. There is another one that I see over here. This is the feed from the dam camera, and there is a woodland kingfisher that one of our zoomies on the dam camera has seen. There's the feed from the dam camera. So well done to the zoomie that has that kingfisher in its sights. You can see the very distinctive red upper bill and the eye stripe of the woodland kingfisher. All right. So that is the woodland kingfisher that you can see over there from the dam cam feed, and probably just keeping out of the rain just for a bit. They're very precocious little birds and will be and tame up when they are utilizing pools around the camp as well. All right, enough about the woodland kingfisher for now. I have something quite epic to show you. This is the microscope feed, and that is what you're having a look at right now. Just have a look at this. So what you're having a look at there is a wasp crawling around on a bunch of larvae, probably maggots of some sort, and I'm going to tell you what that is. So that to me looks like fly larvae, and isn't that just one of the most horrendous things? Imagine that being your eyeball or a sore on your leg or something. It's not good. But I'm going to show you where they come from, because this particular specimen in James's tent's artifacts have got quite a nice story. All right, if you wouldn't mind coming back to us, and I'll show you where this comes from. Okay, we won't be coming back to me just yet. Now, those are all still alive. You can see them moving. Oh, there we go. Back to me. All right, so what this is how I found it. This was a wasp nest that I found on a stick, exactly like this. So this is what the wasp would have done. The wasp would have built up, it's a pottery wasp, would have built up this mud casing, very, very hard. You can see there. And inside the casing, she would have made some chambers. There are the chambers there. Obviously, she never knew that I would come along and bump the stick and her nest would fall out. So these were exposed when we bumped the nest off of the stick. At the time, these cavities were filled with a bunch of green caterpillars. And in each cavity, there was one wasp's egg. What's happened though is we brought this back to the tent, but the exposed nests, or the exposed chambers, have allowed other animals to be able to get inside this nest that otherwise wouldn't have. This is what was presented to the world. This is impervious to flies. Flies wouldn't have been able to get in there. But with the densely packed caterpillars inside of this particular, inside these cavities, flies got in. But one wasn't exposed, and that was that. And out of that hole came a fully fledged wasp. So there was that cavity was an extra cavity we didn't even know was there. That's how well camouflaged they are. And out of that cavity came a wasp. Unfortunately, these cavities have got a bunch of things in there we don't even know why. The middle one was the maggots that you were looking at under the microphone feed, with a tiny wasp that was in there, probably parasitizing the maggots. Inside this one seems to be a fully grown wasp that couldn't get out. And I'll see if we can see some more things inside there just now with the microphone. Or microphone with the microscope, what am I saying? And inside this one over here is another thing. I don't know what it is. It's this orangey color. very weird to see. It's going to be interesting to see what this all is. I don't quite know if I'm going to brave breaking it open just yet. I think I want to see what those maggots are going to turn into. Just have a look at that inside there. That is my heartbeat that is causing that to shake. These cameras are really amazing to show you all these different feeds. I must be honest with you. They really are. It's one of the reasons why I like this tent so much, is that it just is fascinating what you can get up to out here. Now, on a different topic, and one I wanted to show you for a bit, we've got a wind map up so that I can show you exactly where our weather's coming from. Here we have Africa. This is Africa. This is South Africa. Here. We are situated about there, just on the edge of that green, and you can see all the moist air coming into here from the ocean. That's the Indian Ocean. You can see all the moist air coming in. Oh, we've got some arrow-marked babblers making a babble outside, and you can see how across the whole of the Indian Ocean is being fed with moisture-rich air. So it looks like we're in for some clouds, hopefully, for the rest of the week. I'm hoping. You can see the central part of Africa. Equatorial Africa is, for a change, relatively still from a wind point of view. Very cool.
Even many birds around now. I've seen, so far since we left the Woodland Kingfisher, I've seen one turtle dove flying. That's it. That is the only animal life that I've seen. Even the Impala have gone, nah, I think getting up this morning was a mistake. We're going to go back inside again. So we're just going to bubble. We're still looking for that lion's eye. I've actually seen a couple growing on Cheetah cutline, so that flower that I was telling you about, the bright orange one. So we will see if we can locate it, if we're lucky enough, if they haven't all been eaten. There's a little spider that is now living, but I don't think you'll be able to see it. It's just down here. It's made its web and is now living here in the canvas, which is quite nice. Let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got. Okay. On to Cheetah cutline we go. Come on, elephants, buffalo, anything. Wildebeest. Where's a wildebeest when we need a wildebeest? That would be quite nice to see, just standing here in the long grass. Oh, hello, Francolins. Let's watch these Francolins run around. They're just in front of the car over there. Morgan, now you're wondering, as soon as we're looking at some birds, how many species of birds do you see in the Kruger National Park? Now, there's quite a few. There's definitely over 300. I think in this particular area we get just over 250. But we're also quite limited here because we don't have the big riverine thickets, which will house a number of different species of birds. But here we go, and I'll be able to show you another one in the moment when these two move off, the crested francolins, and you can hear, if you listen carefully, the monotonous lark calling. And they haven't stopped. I don't know how they haven't got hoarse voices by now, because they're even calling right into the night. It's actually quite unbelievable that they're able to sing for such a long period of time. And whether it's all of them or whether it's just one that's very chirpy and enjoys to sing like James and I'm not sure. But this is very nice. Mr. and Mrs. Crested Francolin going for a morning stroll, looking for a spot to have a bite to eat. Today wouldn't be a bad day to be digging around in elephant dung or rhino dung or buffalo dung. I can imagine that there'd be lots and lots of insects hiding underneath there, firstly for shelter, and of course, well, if you're a dung beetle or a dung beetle larvae, that's a good spot to be. Even a couple of termites or the maggots that Stef was showing you earlier, these birds would find them a very tasty treat. And that's actually something that we get to see quite often when there's an abundance of buffaloes that have, well, been captured by the nkuhumas, and when they start to decompose, the maggots get in there, and occasionally the crested francolins will be brave and sneak past the pride lions to feast on the maggots. Oh my goodness, there's a monotonous lark that's just flown right past us. We're going to lose these birds because they're coming too close to us. I'm going to get us a position where we can see this lark I also don't know if there's a tree behind me, but we'll just hope for the best. Craig, I don't know if we can't see it because the roof is unfortunately too low, and it's sitting very high up on a tree. We won't be able to get the monotonous lark, but I can show you a picture that I can do. Let's get the good old trusty bird app out again. Let's just go out of here. We've got to go to L for lark. We've got quite a few different species of larks, as you can see. But we're going to go to the one that's the top left, and I'm actually going to open it. Let's open it. Let's get a real picture. I'm going to turn it sideways. There we go. And there we have a monotonous lark. That is the one that's doing all the chirping, and that's exactly what it looks like when it calls to. Mouth agape, a little the nape on its head all crested up, or sort of ruffled feathers. And they're lovely birds, don't you think? Very, very nice. So that's what the monotonous lark looks like, and you've heard it call many times. Let's see who else is out and about. We'll keep doing a couple of birds, so we'll see if we can find any more to add to our bird list. I also want to do a quick count and see how many I've seen so far. Tristan is finally back in the game. He's had an interesting morning with the cars. Let's go in here. What's been happening his side?
Indeed, Taylor. We thought we'd just finally decide to come do some work. Viam and I have been having coffee. No, in all seriousness, we've been messing around with cars. We changed to Jigger, so poor Viam had to re-rig Jigger. Then Jigger's battery wasn't working, so then we changed back to Wendy, and now we are finally out and back in the bush, which is great news. Now, it also means that we came all the way home to get a roof for nothing, because it has now stopped raining. We're back in Wendy, we still don't have a roof, and so all of it feels like it was a little bit for nothing at the end of the day, but it's the way it goes. There's trials and tribulations sent out here to test one's character, and they certainly are testing VM's character, that's for sure. And rigging one of these vehicles is not a quick job, so poor VM has been very busy this morning. Now, it's kind of thrown a bit of a spanner in our whole plan for the morning. We were going to do boundary checks and go and see what we could find, but that's not going to happen now since we had to come back to camp. We are now going to see what else we can find. I did see a sleeping elephant this morning, very, very early on Vua Tele access, so I'm going to try and go see if I can find that herd of elephants. It looked like they were going southwards towards Rebecca's, Zoe's area, so I'm going to go and check around there, see if there's any signs of our elephant herd, and then I think doing some birding too, since the weather is not fantastic. There should be some birds. Now that it's stopped raining, I would imagine some of the birds are going to be drying out and sitting quite exposed on branches, so it should be quite good for some birding. All I can hear though this morning is these monotonous larks. They are dominating the calling process. They've not shut up the whole morning, and like I said, all night as well, so they've been very, very loud. Ah, Boba. This is an interesting one. You want to know what the noisiest bird is in South Africa? I agree. I was going to say the same thing, VM. So VM and I are in agreement. We say the Hardy-Dar ibis. Now, the Hardy-Dar ibis is like a... how do I explain this? It's quite a big bird. We do see them here. They've got a big recurved beak, but they are like pterodactyls in the sky. They come flying past and they land on your window sill at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they produce this horrid sound, which I shall actually play for you because it is terrible. VM, have you been woken up by Hardy-Dars before in the mornings? Exactly.
I had like hundreds of recordings ruined by Hardy-Dars.
There we go. So VM's saying he's even had recordings ruined by Hardy-Dars. Let's find it quickly and we can play this call for you. So that is what they do at 4 o'clock in the morning right outside your window while you're trying to sleep. It is very annoying, and they are all over Johannesburg. So they are quite a noisy bird, and if you want to know what they look like, that is what they look like there. It's a... oh, sorry, let me get that for you. So it's quite a large bird, and it's got this black and red beak, and then it's got a little bit of iridescence on the wing. They're actually quite pretty birds, but unfortunately their call and how common they are make them a little bit of a pain. So they are definitely, I would say, the loudest bird and the bird that makes the most noise out here. At the moment though, the monotonous lark is definitely giving them a run for their money. The nice thing about a monotonous lark is at least it's a pretty sound. It's, it's a nice call that they make, whereas the hardy-dar is just the squawk and scream that comes bellowing out of their quite large bodies and tends to wake most people up, or at least disturb most people. Sorry? They remind you of Brent, Viam. That's actually a very good idea. I think that's very true. Brent is a bit hardy-dar-like. He's very, very loud, particularly in the mornings. Brent seems to find this energy in the mornings that I don't know where he gets it from, but it's amazing. He wakes up and he's full of beans, particularly if he was up late the night before. Louis, you want me to do an imitation of a hardy-dar call? Right, let me just play it one more time so I can get my head around it. I've been doing frog calls the whole of yesterday because it is World Frog Day tomorrow, and we did a little something with the crew, and I was making frog calls all of yesterday, so those are all in my mind. So let me just play it one more time. Okay, hold on. There we go. How's that? That's not too bad. That would be quite irritating, Avian. Megan says very good. Well, there we go. Now, that is a terrible, terrible call, and not something you would want to make often in your life, but we gave it our best shot, and I think it came out alright. The trick with it is just to maybe sound like a crying baby, really, and just belt it out as loud as you can, and hope for the best. Feels like that's what they do. They just open their beak and just push as much air out, and whatever comes out is good enough for them. Now you can see on the road here, we're talking just now about elephants, and I said I was going to come look for elephants. You see on the left side of the road there's a whole bunch of grass. Now that is from elephants. So as we've been sort of driving around, you've been seeing lots of this grass on the road, and it's from the elephants at the moment. And what's happening, and the reason why they're doing this, is I know Taylor was showing you some of the grasses around, is at the moment the grass is all seeding, so the seeds are packed full of nutrients, and the elephants are walking and taking their trunk and taking big swathes of grass, shoving it in, and then they only eat that top section, so they're only eating the seeds itself, and then they drop the stalks on the road. So you can actually track elephants at the moment just by following the big piles of dead grass, or if it's fresh, live grass that's been left on the road. It's quite an easy way to do it. Also see it with the hippos at the moment. They're doing the same thing. So if you're on hippo tracks, you will find lots of little bits of grass all over the road as they've gone along feeding off those seeded areas. But that grass that we see there is quite old. You can see it's already dry and dead, so that would have been from a few days ago. We have had quite a bit of hot sun, so the grass does dry quite quickly when it's picked, but probably 3-4 days ago. Now those elephants that we saw this morning, or that elephant that I did see very early this morning, should have come out somewhere in this general vicinity, maybe a little bit further ahead of us. It was moving this way, and there was tracks for a whole herd. It looked like a young female by herself, which is quite strange. Generally what we would find is obviously the females in herd systems, and then the males form these loose sort of single bulls or groups together. So Chris, so elephants in the winter change their diet drastically. Now in the summer months they'll be eating about 70%, 60 to 70% of their diet is going to be grass, and they're going to make use of all this greenery that we see around here. In winter this all dies back and the grass becomes really null and void. There's very little that they can actually feed off. You will find that every now and then they will pull up grass and eat the root system, because the root system will still house some sort of nutrients and moisture that they can get from that, but they turn their attention more to bark and roots. So what you'll find is that these elephants will go up to a tree and they will break a branch, or they'll dig their tusk into the trunk of the tree and they'll strip off pieces of bark, and what they're looking for is the cambium layer. Now the cambium layer is a red layer that sits underneath the bark, and it is the transport system for the plant. So it is taking nutrients from the roots up into the leaves, and it is basically how the plant utilizes its nutrients to grow. And so for the elephants, that's a huge resource in the winter months, so they utilize that, and then they will also dig a lot, and you'll find that they go and they use their feet and they dig up soil, and underneath there will be roots and tubers, and they'll then break up those roots and pull them and feed off those. Right, so we're going to carry on looking for our elephants and see if maybe they've popped out somewhere here for us that we can get a good view of them. And while we do that, let's go across to Stef, who's got something a lot smaller, but I think a lot scarier.
From elephant all the way out to maggots. I think that's the circle of life out over here, and I'm absolutely fascinated by this chamber inside this wasp's nest that we're busy having a look at over here. We've got it on the microphone. I keep on calling it a microphone. What am I doing? Microscope feed. There it is for you. Now inside that dark patch in the middle, so in the middle is the maggots. What those little balls attached to them is their own feces. They're busy feeding on the leftover caterpillars, but rooting around inside this ball of maggots is a wasp. Now the last time I saw this little wasp inside here was just below right of center, and the first clue you're going to get is this iridescent sheen of the wings, and that's how I found it, was that iridescent sheen of the wings. Let's see if she comes out and shows us what she's doing. I got a feeling that she's probably preying on the maggots, that she's laying her eggs inside these maggots, and her babies will then feed on the maggots, or the fly at least that the maggot becomes. Just look at that moving mass of maggots. Now the brown inside the maggot is the caterpillar that they've been eating. It's the decomposing caterpillar. I wonder if this is a fly maggot, you know. I don't actually know what this is. It could quite easily be the larvae of another insect, you know. Just look at them all moving inside there. Isn't that just the most horrifying thing that you've ever seen in your whole life? It's absolutely crazy. So they're going to take a few weeks to get a little bit bigger, or a few days, excuse me, to get a little bit bigger than what they are, and then they're going to pupate, and then we'll find out what they are going to come out as, I have no doubt. Now, a little bit earlier in the day, we were asked by James, if I have it correct. Megan, you just let me know if it is James asking about the different types of bees that we get. And since I talked about being in the tent with James and his giraffe skull with the bees in it, here is the nest of one of the smallest bees that we get here. This is the Mopani bee. Now James has put some duct tape around it just so that people can actually see it, because mistakenly these are quite fragile and we can actually hurt them. So inside this skull, inside a cavity in the skull, would be these tiny bees. They build these chambers, this waxy chamber, entrance chamber. And they live inside here. They are pollinators of plants, and these are the smallest bees that I know of, and so we'll obviously pollinate the smallest plants in this particular area. The biggest bees we get are the carpenter bees. So I'm going to show you, we'll see if we can see one of these bees. I'm going to take the microscope off here now. We'll see if we can put one into the microscope. Right now it doesn't look like they're active at all. Although I must be honest that this tube is a lot bigger than when I last saw it. So there's a good chance that they're still in here and that the activity will bring them out. Now what I'm going to try and do is show you the largest bee. So I will show you the small bee if I can throughout the course of the show. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you a carpenter bee though, and so I have one in the book here for you. And I want to show you what a carpenter bee looks like, because they are the largest bees that we have. So it's number 68, here we go. I have it. So here's the carpenter bees. They are very big bees. They are bees that are probably about 2 thumbnails big. I would say that in relation to my finger, that's actually a pretty good scale for a carpenter bee. They're the largest bees that we find out here, and of course are all pollinators. So the smallest bee and the largest bee in relation to my fingernail is what we have. All right, we are going to be going over to Tristan, who's managed to find a bird, and before it flies away, see you just now.
So we were talking just now about the monotonous tones of the monotonous lark, and we've got one right next to the car that is belting out its morning song. So that is the sound that we've been hearing non-stop the last few days. Oh, and a little bit of sunshine too, just to add to everything. That's very, very nice. It's really making that colour on the lark come out. Now, larks are not very colourful animals, but with this morning sun, it just gives you a little bit more of the kind of tones and shades that they have on their back area. But you can see they do not stop singing. They just keep going and going and going and going, and it seems like they just have an endless battery that they can keep pushing it out. They remind me a little bit of Taylor. She always has something to say. It's very seldom that Taylor keeps quiet around camp. We know that there's something seriously wrong when Taylor is very quiet. She's definitely one of the life-filled people of the camp, and much like Brent, they two in the same, those ones. They both like to have a little chat. Isn't that spectacular? Amazing. Keep calling. Hopefully he will find what he's looking for, and he'll be able to find a mate. But that was very, very nice. Nice to see them so close as well. Normally birds fly when we get that close, but this monotonous lark was very happy for us just to pull up alongside it and have a little view of him and listen to his beautiful call. Now, I wonder where Karula and the cubs are. I've just been thinking about it as we've been driving. There's been no signs that we've picked up. We've driven the areas all over the place. We drove those areas that Stef and Herbie had those alarm calls a few nights ago, and there's no tracks there. So I have no idea where she might be. And like I say, nobody in the south has actually seen her either. So it's a bit wonder where she might be. She's probably sitting on a big Impala carcass somewhere, and that's why we haven't actually seen her. But alas, we shall see. Now, we've been watching the monotonous lark, and we've been seeing it calling away, and I likened it to Taylor. So let's go across to Miss McCurdy herself and see what little call she's singing for us in her updates.
I was actually practicing a song in my head just now, but it's not quite ready. And now, Tristan, I'm so glad that you managed to actually get a view of the monotonous lark, because the one that we had was just sitting too high on the tops of the trees. So I had to show a photo, but at least we've checked and we had a nice view. It sounds like you had a nice view with Tristan. So that's good. Another one to add to the list. And I have to tell Tristan, because I actually don't know if he knows, and I tried to get hold of him on the Game Drive radio to let him know that I saw a black-shouldered kite, because I don't think he has a roof on his car, and I wanted him to actually go back to that area to see if he could find it again, because he'd definitely be able to put it on screen. I don't know when any of you have last seen a black-shouldered kite around here, or if you've ever seen a black-shouldered kite in this area. So let's see, if you have seen one, when was the last time you saw a black-shouldered kite? You can hashtag Safari Live to let us know. It'll be quite interesting to hear. Like I said, they're not particularly common, so I'll get hold of Tristan just now on the Game Drive radio once the chatter stops, and I'll let him know exact position, and hopefully he can go back there. Now, I spoke to Rolf. He just passed me, and he said that he'd seen a big elephant bull down near Aubrey's Road. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to go and see if we can find this elephant bull, because I think that it's the only elephant on the property at the moment. The others, well, they could be here, but they're all hiding away, I think, in these the drainage systems underneath all these thick vegetation. There's just dung and tracks absolutely everywhere. Even that big herd that we had last night, I went to check for. Gone. Nowhere to be seen. And there were loads of Ellies we had on the sunset safari. But the sun is coming out. Sort of. The clouds have definitely lifted, so perhaps that was the end of the rain now. We'll see. We won't say anything is not. Let's try that again. Nothing is impossible out here. Like I said, started with stars this morning, ended with a downpour. It was wonderful. and it'll be nice. I think we would have had just enough rain to start to see the grass turn a more green again. So I don't know if you noticed, as it's been so hot, the grass started to go quite yellow. It's looking good as we're driving through here, but we'll see in the next few days it will be that lovely bright green again. Grass doesn't need much to grow. It's amazing how it just needs a couple of mills and then it grows a few inches. Okay, so we're almost at Aubrey's. It's just a little way to go still along the cut lines. There's lots of fresh things. Where are these elephants? Freshly cut grass deposited on the ground. Let me check here. No. Seems like all the elephants have crossed north into Buffelshoek this morning. Now, David, you were wondering how long does it take for a bird before it will find a new mate? That's a very good question, David. I don't know if I have an exact answer for you. Is that the road we need to go down? Yes, I think it is. Let's go down this road. I'm just trying to think. I think I've told you the story about the day that it was very sad that I found the turtle dove. That looked like it had been attacked by something, maybe a caracal or another bird, and it was laying on the ground. It was pretty much on its way out, and its partner was just sitting next to it, didn't really know what to do, was just sitting waiting. I felt very sad. And so you can definitely see that there's strong bonds between various monogamous birds, but how long they wait, I'm uncertain. I don't know if they mourn or if they pine. I know dogs, if you talk about, for instance, we go to dogs, you definitely see with your pets, when you lose a member of the family, particularly another dog, I've always seen it in it. Most of the other dogs, we've always had lots of them, they'll tend to pine, and you can see they look a little bit miserable. So I don't know if birds do the same thing. I don't think they're not intelligent enough to do so. Like I said, after I saw that day that the partner was just sitting waiting with its injured partner, I thought it was very, very sad. It made me rethink the way that animals think. But of course we don't know. It could be a couple of days, it could be a few weeks, it could be a month, it could be never again. Maybe they just never find another mate that's suitable. I think we've just missed a group of elephants. I think they were here. Okay, so I think we missed this herd of elephants, but this is the herd of elephants that has crossed north. But there are lots and lots of tracks coming from different directions, so there could be a whole network of elephants moving around here. Now, I believe most of you haven't ever seen a black-shouldered kite on Safari Live before. Okay, well that's quite exciting. Although maybe we'll also head back down into that area and give it another bash and see if we can perhaps pick it up again. Like I said, it's just hard with the roof, so that's why I think Tristan will have better luck with not having a roof on his car. He can get it quite high, and to see them hover is something quite special too. It's really amazing the way that they're able to backpedal their wings and generate enough lift to keep them in one spot. Obviously today they'll also be utilizing the wind because it is very much windy, so they won't be using too much energy by flapping their wings. But it's just amazing on a still day when there's not a breath of wind to see either a pied kingfisher or a black-shouldered kite doing it. It is amazing as to how powerful those wings are. Let's see what else is around. We're looking for this elephant, this bull. But I think it sounded like he was still towards Vuyatela access, not quite where we are now. We shouldn't be too far away from the access. We've been driving on Aubrey's for quite some time. Let's have a look here. And still just checking up in the trees and the big marulas. You never know, you might as well find a leopard just sitting up there. Whoa. This is the hardest part, trying to dodge all of the dung, because you don't really want to drive over any animal's dung, and particularly big dung like this, like elephants, just because there'll be termites, there'll be sorts of beetles and dung beetles and things feasting on it, so we don't want to drive over them and squash them. That wouldn't be very nice. So we're playing dodge the elephant dung today. We're not doing a bad job, eh, Craig? We're bobbing and weaving quite well. Right, we've got to Vuyatela access and no elephant. So we're going to have to keep on searching, do a bit of tracking to figure out where this bull has gone. But Stef has managed to pick himself a lovely flower.
To pick myself a lovely flower, Taylor. I've picked it for Nat.Geo. Today I've promised Nat.Geo that we'd look for all the flowers that have come out after the recent rain and in this time of the year, and one of the flowers that has come out I found right next to the tent. It's this lovely flower here, the Commelina bengalensis, which I have under the microscope feed just for you. Have a look at that. Nat.Geo, that's just for you. Let me see if I can focus the microscope on its petals for you a little bit. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? A sky blue flower, 2 petals, and then with these fantastic anthers and stigmas. Real treasure to have a look at. There we go, that's about as good as I can get it. Hopefully it looks the same on your side as it does on my side, with a slight breeze busy blowing it there. That is one of the most beautiful flowers that we have around at the moment, fairly common. And you can have it as a garden salad. It's an edible salad. So you can pick these and you can eat them over here, and they're quite nice. Here we go, that's what it looks like. I've also put it for you on our block of quartz. Hopefully you like that. Now, one thing that isn't that edible, a plant that isn't that edible, was a plant that Taylor was talking about a little bit earlier called the Euphorbia cooperi, which is one of the poisonous plants that we have out here, highly poisonous plants in actual fact that we have out here. She asked me to find a picture for you a little bit earlier, and I have done that. So if we can go across to over here, I will show you what that looks like. This is the Euphorbia cooperi. Euphorbiaceae family is one of the biggest families of trees that we have in the country, and as you can see, that very thick fleshy leaf, the angular stem, and the fact that they all point up is indicative that they like to grow in the drier areas. So if you think about cactuses in your particular part of the world, they almost always have a plant form looking like this, where the leaves of the plant are thick and fleshy and pointing upwards, and that is quite simply just as a water saving technique. So if your leaf is nice and flat, like a normal leaf would be, with your most exposed surface area pointing to the sun, you've also got the most exposed surface area drying water out of your body. But as soon as you turn your leaf this way, you get enough sun in the early morning coming at your leaf, you get enough sun in the late afternoon coming at your leaf, and at midday when it's at its hottest, you get the least amount of sun on the point of the leaf. Also, having a leaf that's angled and fleshy increase or decreases the surface area. So the thicker it is, the less surface area it has, the less water it'll lose. Waxy coating, if you think about cactuses, they've got a very hard skin, another way of saving water. And the fact that it's angled means that at least half the leaf is in shade half the time. So all just water saving techniques. So let's go back to this picture so that I can point that all out to you. So as you can see, upright stems at 12 o'clock, the least amount of sun. Then we've got the angled leaves, at least half of them are in the shade at any one time. Thick and fleshy, less surface area, so it loses less water, and then waxy coverings on the leaves themselves to reduce water loss. And then of course, thorns to prohibit animals from eating the leaves. That is the Euphorbia cooperi, one of the most, in my opinion, drought resistant trees that we have out here, and a fantastic tree to talk about. Now, not only does it have these modifications to help it save water, but it also keeps its water locked up in a milky latex, so it keeps its water thick and juicy, which is also reduces the chance of that water being evaporated out. Now, Taylor did talk to you a little bit about the toxins, so I'm not going to do that, but before we lose the wildebeest that Tristan is with, we're going to send you over to him.
Indeed, these wildebeest see a little bit shy, so we're a bit worried that they were going to run away. But luckily it's now stopped just to watch us. You can see the flies are driving him crazy. So Stef earlier on walk was alluding to the fact that the flies were out in full force this morning. And there is testament of it, the way this wildebeest is shaking around. You can see the tail's working overtime. It's moving its head towards the side of its body. Also using the hoof just to itch in the ear there a little bit. Or scratch, should I say, not itch. Now, I don't know whether they're so skittish. We're back hands just off which is that Hosanna and Julia often like to lie. So I'm just looking around because they've been very, very skittish. They've been, oh, there's a little fork-tailed drongo that's got a kill of some sort. A little caterpillar by the looks of it. You see what that is, Vim? Looks like a caterpillar, doesn't it? Well, obviously it wasn't very tasty because the drongos left it alone. And that looks like a young drongo. You can see around the tummy, it's still got that mottled coloration, so a little bit of white in there. It's not a fully jet black adult that you'll see, so this is a younger one. Now, I'm trying to see what it's actually feeding on there, but I can't. It's moving it around far too much. It almost actually looks like a beetle that it's dismembering. Difficult to see though. It's not easy. But whatever it was, it seemed to be quite tasty, and this little drongo was quite happy to have it. And like I was saying, the wildebeest when we first arrived were quite skittish and shy, and they were snorting and they were huffing and puffing, and they seemed to be trotting off a little bit, and then they stop and they stare. So I don't know if they've maybe bumped into something. It could be that they maybe come from Arathusa side. We're not far from that western boundary, and so maybe the Nkahumas chased them last night. That's also very possible. The Nkahumas did look like they were going to be hunting last night, and I haven't heard any updates about them, but it's very possible that these guys bumped into them during the course of the night, and that's pushed them further eastwards to this area. You can see they keep facing towards the west. So what I might do is just slowly take a drive along and just see if there's any sign of anything. I haven't seen any tracks coming from the south towards this area or from the west, but you never know. They definitely are quite nervy and quite nervous of something. So just going to quickly go up the road here and just see if we can see anything. So Gadiel, you're wondering whether predators hunt during or after a rainy day? Well, it depends. A predator is an opportunistic animal, so it definitely utilizes any advantage that it can. So I have seen predators hunting extensively in the rain, so both lion and leopard utilizing the rain to their advantage, and cheetah for that matter. So they do hunt a lot during the rain. After the rain, it depends on what happens. If it's a very dark, dingy afternoon and we get a big thunderstorm in the afternoon and then the night rolls in, then most definitely they will. And a day like today, if it starts to brighten up, then I would imagine that no, they probably won't be doing too much hunting. They'll be spending most of their time trying to dry out and get themselves clean again for the evening. These wildebeest are still very skittish. But they do utilize the rain to their advantage when it comes to hunting. You'll find that often when it rains, it just deadens the scent, so there's no scent that's being carried. There's also often a wind that swirls, so the prey animal really battles to actually pick up where the scent is coming from. Also, the sound of the rain muffles the sound of the predators moving, so it becomes a lot harder for the prey animals to pick up predators. And generally when it's raining, it's also very, very dark and very, very overcast, and that means that the darker it is, the harder it is for these prey animals to actually pick up the tones of those predators. So they do hunt a lot in the rain, and I would imagine that it would be a good place to, or a good time to try and find a nice open area so that you can see what's going on. So I don't see anything on the side or any tracks. But let's carry on a little bit further and just see in case something is lurking. Geeky wondering whether animals use plants and trees to rub against to try keep away bugs other than and not just mud. Well, I have seen many an animal thrashing trees, but that's not really to ward off bugs. I mean, the flies and these kind of insects that are landing on them, that are causing them to twitch and move. Plants and trees are not really going to help. You can go and rub up against a plant or move through a plant, and all those flies will come off, but then they just land back on again. So I have seen elephants and buffalo and rhinos. They often go through thickets to try and get rid of as many flies as possible, but the flies generally find them again quite quickly. So it's not the best technique. Mud works a lot better, and then also the response that their skin has. So if you watch things like impalas or wildebeest, zebras is actually a really good one. Their skin is so sensitive to any touch. As soon as a fly lands, the skin vibrates and sort of ripples, and that's enough to get the flies off. So constantly twitching as they go. Well, we've had a naughty elephant here, so let me just quickly pull this out the way. Alright, so while I pull this out of the road and clear the path, let's go across and see where she is and what she's managed to find on this dreary, rainy morning.
We are not having any luck, Tristan, very sadly. We can't find the birds. I've been looking for that black-shouldered kite again, but it seems to have moved off elsewhere. Maybe it was hungry and there was just no rodents in those areas. So we're just bumbling again for the moment. We shall go this way though. Going past the Balanites tree, which is down on my right, but you can't see it because of the covers on the car. You know, it is really, really tough out here on these miserable days. And one of the hardest things, like you can imagine, is when you come out on safari, when you're actually sitting here and your guide is struggling to find anything just because the weather is so miserable. This is where, Craig, we need to bring a picnic basket. And we need to pack hot chocolate and some muffins or some fruit, and then we can just set up a nice drink stop and just enjoy the fresh air. And you can all have your cups of coffee and we can drink it together, that type of thing. I think that would be quite nice for these quieter mornings. And I really thought that the birds would be out in full force today, but it seems as though that's not the case at all. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go all the way back to quarantine, and I'm going to go and find the McCurdy-hurdy, and hopefully they'll be around. I did see them first thing this morning. They were lying up just in the middle of the open area. So we'll go and see if they are still around there. Though they could have also moved off into the thicket just because of the wind. You know, if you go sort of to the western corner of quarantine, there's quite a few bush willows which make for sort of nice shelter. So they could have also gone there. But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see if anything is around. But for now, oh my goodness, Stef is having all the luck today. He's finding all the animals and all the interesting little critters. And I think Stef's new name should be Spider-Man, because he seems to find all the arachnids.
Now, what we've got here is quite a unique situation where we've got a female brown widow spider, a male brown widow spider, and her beetle prey. Can you believe that a spider like that has managed to kill a beetle this size? Absolutely incredible, and testimony to how virulent her toxin is. This is one of the most poisonous spiders that we find out here, the Lactrodectus geometricus. And just off to her left, I don't know if Davey can see it from that angle, is the male spider. That's the male brown widow spider. Please take a screenshot if you can. We'll try and set it up as much as possible. This particular scene of brown widow spider in her nest with the male brown widow spider in attendance is unique, especially with the size prey that she's got. Now, male brown widow spiders, why the spider gets the name widow is because these particular spiders have a nasty reputation for killing their mates. So that's where the widow spiders get their name from, their reputation for killing their mates. However, it's usually the the young males that get eaten. Older males, they don't get eaten. They're a lot more clever. So the males that end up fertilizing the eggs of these females are, funnily enough, one or the other. Either a young male sacrifices his life and in so doing fertilizes the female's eggs, or an older male will fertilize less females but more often than the younger males do. So that's two strategies there that is employed by the male widow spiders, and unique what we're seeing here now, and I don't know what one it is. Whether this is an older male or a younger male, time will tell for this particular spider. Oh, I've got a bad shake this morning. Please excuse me. I'm going to let it go. The wind has died down a little bit.
Cool.
And let's just see if we can, without my caffeine shake. There we go. That's probably a bit better. How's that, Dave?
Much better.
That is very bad. Kyle, you've just asked me what animals eat spiders. Mainly birds, Kyle, but also spiders are preyed upon by wasps and any other number of insect predators as well. Also other spiders, but mainly birds are what eat spiders, Kyle. This particular spider, though, is very toxic, even to humans. She bit me. It's one of the most painful bites out here. The toxin affects the lymph glands, so if she bit me on my arm, for instance, the lymph glands closest to my arm, in my armpit, would swell up and create an intense painful feeling. It's a neurotoxic venom, meaning it's going to affect the way my heart beats and the way my lungs breathe, and so I might get a bit anxious. I might even have some problems breathing or with my heart doing funny things. But that is this toxin. She's not the most poisonous one. The black widow, the Lactrodectus indistinctus, is the most poisonous one of the neurotoxic spiders that we find in South Africa. She's just a cousin of that, and a really beautifully colored spider. She gets her name Geometricus from the fact that on her ventral side there is a hourglass red marking, and I'll see if I can show it to you. There through that gap, you can probably see it there on her bottom. So there through that gap there.
Through that gap.
Now, I don't want to be bitten by this male either in the process of trying to show you the hourglass shape on her bottom side.
Just make it out.
Just make it out there, that red orangey hourglass shape. That is what makes her the brown widow. And here comes the male. He's coming over the top. Are you going to get eaten? Are you a clever man? Or are you going to do or die? Or do and die, I should say, rather. You must be careful. You are going to get mistaken for some prey there, my friend. Yeah, he's being a little bit more careful. Doesn't look like it, eh? What are you doing, buddy? Too much movement. She's going to think you're a piece of food. She's going to eat you up. What are you doing? Looks like he's spinning a web of some sort. You're looking at some unique behavior. I've never seen this before, hence my lack of being able to interpret what's going on here. I don't know why this male spider is spinning silk in the presence of this female, so close to this female. You can actually see his very enlarged pedipalps. On his face, you will notice two black dots. Those are his pedipalps. It's with the pedipalps that they will insert the sperm packet into the female, and it's why male spiders have much larger pedipalps than what the females do, much more developed pedipalps. In some instances, that pedipalp is used to attract the female. The jumping spiders wave the pedipalps away around because female jumping spiders can see quite well. In other males, that pedipalp forms a type of lock mechanism or key mechanism that they lock into the female's genital opening and break off the pedipalp to seal it completely. I don't know what it is with brown widows. I'm not 100% that up to date with their biology, but this particular male seems to be spinning himself a web in the presence of this female. You're a brave man. You are going to get eaten though, my friend. I think. Now, Brian, you wanted to know if the South African black widows are the same as what you know in America. Yes, absolutely, Brian. Not exactly. They will both be Lactrodectus, the genus Lactrodectus. They may not be indistinctus as the species, the specific species, but there are many widows in the world. We get the two here. We get the Geometricus, this one that we're looking at now, the brown widow as we call it, and the indistinctus, or the black widow as we call it here. You might find that you have Lactrodectus, whatever othicus is going to occur in your part of the world, but they're fairly easy to identify. It's a common spider, especially around homes, in particular on your outside garden furniture, where they like dark places with parallel surfaces. So if the best place to look for widow spiders is underneath your garden chair that you sit out in the lawn at, they enjoy setting their entrapment cobweb snares in parallel surfaces that are quite dark, probably with a gap about this big, about a hand span between the ground and the surface of the chair. I found the most black widow spiders in those particular environments. Now we're going to send you over to Tristan, who's finally managed to catch up with some herds of Ellies. Don't go anywhere, I've got another flower to show you when you come back.
Indeed we have. So we finally located on this herd, and one that we were looking for, and look at that, they've got a tiny little baby. Isn't that sweet? That is a very, very small little one. Just want to see it coming out a little bit before I give it an age. They should be coming across the road fairly shortly, but that is a very small baby. I would say probably about anywhere between 4 and 6 months. It's still very little, but let's see when it comes out. It's going to be nice to have a look. And they are slowly but surely feeding along. Looks like they might go towards Treehouse Dam for a drink. And the sun has just come out, and the temperature, as soon as that sun came out, has absolutely exploded. It's much, much hotter. Right, here it comes. There we go. Okay, it's not as small as I first thought, so I would imagine that it's probably a little bit older than 6 months, between 6 months and a year, but still very little. And look at this, this whole herd is coming across. There's still a couple more to come over. It's a beautiful herd, this. This is about an average size herd that we see here in this particular area of the Kruger. We don't get really massive big herds that you'll see in the Chobe National Park in Botswana. There you get really large ones of well over 100 sometimes. So our herds generally around here are sort of between 10 and 20 animals, and sometimes we get these mega herds where we'll get 60, 70 of them congregating in one area. But I'm sure they are ecstatic about the morning weather. If you're an elephant, a bit of dreary rain is quite nice. It keeps everything nice and cool, and so it is a very, very pleasant experience to have a bit of rain in the mornings. Also, it will have been nice and cool, so they won't be getting punished by that heat that we've been having over the last few days. So for an elephant, it's been very, very nice morning. Also, that bit of rain is going to mean that there's going to be lots of muddy wallows all over the place that they can go and bathe in, and it's going to cause a bit of growth of grass. That soft rain that we get is good for growth of grass, so they'll be happy about that. There's going to be plenty of food for them in the next little bit. And you can see that they are basically mixed feeders. So we were talking earlier about how they eat grass, and grass is one of their main components of their diet in the summer, but you can see that they mix it up. So there's a few herbaceous plants going in as well, and they are feeding off those too. And they will also utilize a few leaves and varying other plants to be able to supplement their diet and get all the nutrients that they need. I'm just going to go a little bit further forward so that we can keep them in view. I was hoping that they would be a little bit further north, because then it would have been quite interesting, because they would have been going towards the hyena den, and we would have been able to go and pop in and see. I think after this rain maybe the hyena den might be active, so I might just poke my nose in there anyway. But Rebecca, You're wondering if the babies hold their mom's tails when they can't see above the grass. Well, I've never seen them really holding the tails for long periods of time in long grass. Where I have seen it is, funny enough, in river systems. So as they cross a waterway that's quite shallow, then the little babies panic sometimes and they grab mom's tail and they go across. Now, in deeper river sections, so if you go into the Sabi River or the Sand River and when it's flooding, I've seen elephants crossing there, and that's very, very interesting with the babies. They don't actually hold on to the tails, but what the elephants do is they will go downstream of the babies, and a little bit downstream, not far at all, and they start to form this line across the river, and the babies then get pushed by the flow of water up against the mothers, and the mothers slowly guide them with their trunks, using their body as a stop for those little baby elephants, and then they cross the river like that with all the babies upstream of the mom. It's quite amazing how delicate they are, and how protective they are, and how clever they are to know that when the water is flowing at that rate, that the little baby is going to be washed away. So they use their body and their bulk and size to be able to create a block for that baby to be pushed up against them, and then they can cross quite nicely. So quite amazing. But in long grass, I've never really seen them holding on to tails of their mom. They generally are quite fine in the long grass. They're able to cope and find a way through, no problem. They just look up and see where mom is and follow that pathway. So, Miss Sky, you're asking how tall elephants can get. Well, the biggest elephant was an elephant that was unfortunately shot in Angola, and as far as I remember, that elephant at shoulder height was standing, let's just think now exactly what the figures were, but I think it was 8 meters. I'll check it for you, but it was 8 meters, which is a very, very, very tall elephant, but I think that might be a bit much. Let me check it and make 100% sure, but they do get very, very tall. Females obviously not as tall as the males. The males will stand much taller because they do get much bigger, and so the general sort of height of a female is about, I would say, 3.5 to 4 meters, and the male's about 6, so they stand very, very tall. But I will check that. The biggest one, I'm sure it was 8 meters for some reason in my mind. Maybe Stef or Taylor can remember what it is. I always get it confused, that one, because I read it and it just seems so mind-blowing, and then for a while you don't think about it, but I'm sure it's somewhere around there. Oh, there's actually quite a nice view of another female, but somewhere in that vicinity, 8 meters, which is absolutely massive when you think about it. That is a huge animal. You can imagine when that's towering over you how impressive that must have been, and how amazing a sight that must have been to see a male in that condition. It must have been incredible. Unfortunately, most of those really big animals that we're talking about have been hunted out, and their numbers have declined because of their size. They were the first ones that hunters would go after, and so unfortunately for them, their numbers have diminished, and we've ended up with a situation where we don't have very many of those left, unfortunately. But I reckon with the sun out, it's going to definitely drive these elephants towards Treehouse Dam for a drink. I think that's where they're going to go and hydrate. So sorry, my calculations were wrong. I thought so. It was 4 meters, which was 11 feet. So that's right. That's what I was thinking, is 8 meters was too much. So 4 meters, or 11, just over 11 feet tall, at the shoulder, on the biggest elephant ever recorded, which is quite something. Now the amazing thing about him, and this is where I've gotten confused about it, is that he weighed over 11,000 kilograms. So his weight was what was so incredible. 11,000 kilograms for a animal is I mean, that is just huge, huge, huge. I can't even explain to you how big that is. But yeah, 4 meters at the shoulder, so quite big. 8 meters is ridiculous. I don't know what I was thinking and why I even said that, but anyway, these things happen sometimes. We get a bit muddled up and turned around. Sorry about that, Miss Sky. It was utter nonsense that I was talking, but 4 meters is about right. So yeah, the female's around 3 and then the male's around 4. So we're going to carry on towards the hyena den and see if maybe the hyenas are out in the sunshine drying out and whether the elephants are going to join them there. And while we do that, let's go across to Taylor and see how she's doing.
Well, Tristan, we managed to find ourselves. There were a couple of baboon around. You can see them just sitting at the edge of the termite mound with an impala. You know how relaxed they are all together. It's quite amazing. So, I know you were talking about elephants and their height. Tristan, I think you were talking about a woolly mammoth, maybe getting to about 8 meters. But as far as I'm aware, normally big bulls can get to sort of between 3 and 4 meters tall. But Tristan, I don't know how far off you are of 8 meters there. Imagine if you go to mana pools in in Zimbabwe, and you see the elephants that stand up on their back legs up to the big anna trees to feed on their beautiful, tasty pods during the winter months. And an elephant stands on its back legs and it stretches its trunk up. I reckon you could be close. I reckon probably maybe about 6 meters. But I don't know, or almost 8. It just depends on, I suppose, the size of the elephant. Yeah. But we're here on quarantine now. And we've got the McCurdy-hurdy, who are vigorously swatting away at the flies, which Craig and I were just doing a moment ago. I was savaging the flies with my guarri bush. Look at them, they've almost timed their tail wagging perfectly. Look at them, they're in sync. Wonderful. But it's actually nice to see that the baboons haven't started shouting at us either. But we have parked quite a distance away from all of the animals to give them a bit of room, because typically on a day like today, with a bit of wind, they can be slightly jumpy, a little bit more nervous than what they normally are. But not our favorite herd of zebra. Nothing seems to worry them these days. They've seen it all, they've heard it all. They don't seem too fussed. Hello guys, all huddling in a group, and also stay nice and warm. So what we're going to do is we're going to hang around over here, because I think this lot might get a bit rowdy, and hopefully the baboons come out, maybe the impala. Stef, however, has found something with the most unbelievable camouflage.
Look at this stick insect that we have over here. Isn't it incredible? Sitting on my jacket. Came out of the grass just now to get some sun, I think just to warm up in the sunshine. Now what is remarkable is the fact that it only has 4 legs. It's supposed to have 6. 2 of its legs are missing. It's lost its front 2 legs that are supposed to come out just behind its head. Just behind its head you'll see 2 cavities there where his leg joints were supposed to go. Poor thing. Doesn't seem to be doing too bad on only 4 legs, I'll be honest. Just have a look at that. The perfect camouflage. Looking like a stick. Quite nice, eh? Must be honest, everything's coming out to play now that the rain has subsided, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty awesome afternoon for the afternoon drive and safari. But let's put this stick insect back. Be quite careful with them, they're quite fragile. Don't quite know how he lost his legs. Let's put him over here and watch him disappear. There we go. Crawling around and almost entirely invisible except for when he moves. He's right here. Disappeared into the grass almost instantaneously. Ash, you wanted to know if they bite. No, they don't bite, Ash. They're 100% harmless. I've never known one to bite before. Here it is over here, moving through the grass at the point of my finger. So Ash, no, they don't bite at all. In actual fact, I don't think they've got very robust mouth parts at all. I've never even heard any reference of what they eat. They probably do hunt or eat grass. I would imagine, looking like grass, they probably eat grass or leaves, suck some sap maybe. Very difficult. And you can see how he's right here straddled between 2 grass stems. Those long legs enabling him to move with the wind and also look like the wind. There just isn't better camouflage than that. Well, I suppose there is, but I mean, the praying mantises, grasshoppers, and stick insects definitely, sometimes, or at least anyway, for the praying mantises and these guys, have the upper hand when it comes down to camouflage. Kyle, you wanted to know if they have any defense mechanisms. They do. They can fly. So if that bug really wanted to, in its adult form, it can actually expose some wings and fly away. They have a very purple colored wing on the large stick insect or the giant stick insect, a purple wing that they can flash open, which will scare prey. And what they're trying to do is they'll flash the wing open and then they'll remain absolutely still, and a bird or potential predator will see the flash and then react to it and either fly away or get a fright, and when they look again, the stick insect's dead still and doesn't move, and they hope that the camouflage then hides their body from detection. So flash coloration, a quick bright flash of color startles the predator, and then it goes back to being absolutely dead still, and the hope is that the predators go on. So no, it doesn't have any poisonous sting or a bite or anything like that, and you know, keeps itself hidden like that. All right, I'm going to send you back over to those baboon and Impala with Taylor.
We're still sitting watching this lovely group of different animals just sitting about enjoying the sun. You can see that that Impala ram is definitely enjoying the morning light. He hasn't moved an inch really. His feet have stayed firmly down on the ground, and now he's decided he's ready to have something to eat. And the baboons as well, they are loving it, sitting up on a termite mound, nice and exposed, warming those bellies up, drying their very, very wet coats, and I'm sure that they are exceptionally happy this morning. Well, especially now after the rain has indeed cleared. Now, I don't want to go too much closer to these baboons because I know what's going to happen. As soon as I start the engine and head around that way, they are going to run away from us. So we'll just watch them from here. And the zebras are actually making their way over to the herd now. You can see that they've moved right away from us. There they are. Also going to stand around the termite mound and keep nice and warm. Now, I always wonder when baboons sit on termite mounds, if they sit on the open chimneys. And we've seen a squirrel doing it. David and I watched a squirrel one day sit on an open chimney of a termite mound, and you know all of that heat comes off. So there we go. They've got their own personal bum warmers, if you will. But those chimneys don't look like they're open. They look like they've been sealed nice and tight due to the bad weather that's come about us. There we go. Some eating, some grooming themselves, one having a good scratch. It's never boring sitting and watching a troop of baboons. It is always really lovely, especially when they're relaxed and not shouting and running away from us. We don't often get to sit and watch them just go about their day like they are. Now, it's been a wonderful morning considering all the rain and the downpours that we have had. It's been quite nice. The animals have saved themselves. The elephant herd coming out, of course, this lot all coming out in the open. It's been really quite fantastic. It looks like the rain is gone now, which is a good thing but also a bad thing. I was hoping we were going to get a little bit more rain, but that means that we should have a nice clear sunset safari. So from all of us here at Wild Earth, we hope you've had a good time, and remember to tune in again this afternoon for the sunset safari. We'll catch you then.